Okay, the time is 6 p.m. and I call this July 6, 2022 Council Workshop meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's an opportunity for citizens to be heard. We don't have anybody here that won't be speaking on a motion, unless you want to speak on something generally before you get there. Is there anybody by Zoom? Which way am I looking? Steph. Joyce, thank you. We'll move on to a motion. We'll need a motion on the alternate borough secretary, so I'll stop calling Owen Joyce. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. Owen Snyder to the position of alternate borough secretary effective immediately?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. I'll take the motion from Deputy Mayor, second from Councilor Mellon. Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Congratulations, Owen. he's excited. Is there the meeting minutes? Is there a motion to approve the June 1st, 2022 workshop meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Motion by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Perry. Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the June 1st, 2022 Council Goal Planning meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the goal planning minutes.
Motion by the Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Second by Councilor Perry. Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion passes. On to the Economic Development Committee. Councilor Perry, although all we're looking for, I think, here is a presentation, so we can call Rebecca on up, and you know the drill.
Let's say hello to the new counselors. I've met Sophronia, of course. Nice to meet you. I'm really excited to be here tonight. Sarah Edelman may be a new name to you, but she's been in the Redevelopment Authority's portfolio for years. An enterprising single mom who has done a lot to better her life and that of her family. She bought a foreclosed house a number of years ago and used the Redevelopment Authority's residential rehab program for income eligible persons to improve that home. That too is enterprising. Council has a unique opportunity here to assist Ms. Edelman, here she is, Sarah Edelman, in becoming the borough's first micro-enterprise investment. You can add her to your portfolio. She will be the new owner of the reinvigorated, rethought, reimagined, and reintroduced 360 Dance Fitters. We know that retail is precious. Retailers are the tougher ones to find, the most coveted of our downtown assets, and frankly, the hardest to land. So we want to do all we can to make sure that we're retaining this business. Food and drink still reigns, we know that, but people want to shop. They want goods and services. They want to be able to get that at the ready, and she's ready. Her request is for $50,000 to acquire the business that's downtown since 2005 and transform it by adding online shopping and vendor clinics at nearby stops and studios to support the dancers across the region and our very own Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet. And I just learned tonight that she's hosting one of the students this summer. The business at 22 North Pitt Street will remain open. This is not the time of year for a timeout in terms of business when you're working with all of those students and campers. This is their busiest season. Having managed a dance apparel shop, she really knows the industry. She knows the products, she knows the suppliers, the vendors, the studios, the instructors, and of course the students. She has 2 young students at home. She's a mom to 2 students. This $50,000 CDBG loan request will finance the purchase of the inventory, the fixtures, the furnishings, the collateral material, the data, We are once again pleased to team with Caprice Properties, who now owns the building. This was an earlier Borough Redevelopment Authority project, that building, and lender Members First Federal Credit Union to help her step up closer to her dream. The tenant will put $12,000 into the project. As a micro enterprise, the CDBG Community Development Block Grant requirements are a little different, a little more lenient, but she still has a loan at 2% interest, which will be amortized over 25 years with a balloon, like all of our other loans, at 7 years. The shop steading loan will be secured by a third lien on the residential real estate, her home, that she owns in West Pennsboro Township behind Wells Fargo in the first position, Members First in the third position. In addition, she will have liens on all of the inventory and the equipment, etc., plus a personal guarantee. As a micro enterprise, and that's a business with 5 or fewer employees, where one of those employees is an income eligible owner, that'd be Sarah. She's already fulfilled the job requirement for this particular loan, but she intends to hire additional part-time employees in the future. Coming out of the pandemic and finally getting back in full swing, here is a business that, quite frankly, has been on autopilot for a lot of years. Here is an enterprising woman who wants to help others get back on the stage or the dance floor, as the case may be, and will retool the operations to be wildly successful. We look for your approval of this request to finance Edelman's purchase of 360 Dance Fitters, assuring that this destination stop will remain a downtown Carlisle shop for many years to come. We welcome any questions you may have and appreciate your support for this woman-owned micro-enterprise.
We will have this queued up for action next week, but does council have any questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. Thank you for the update, Rebecca. And,
Thank you. You're welcome.
good to see you. Okay, we will move on to the Public Works Committee. Councilor Perry.
So I am to push this over to Mark to do his presentation.
Yes, Mark has a briefing to provide on the solid waste and recycling bid results.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I believe it was at the May workshop meeting we spoke at length about the fact that our solid waste and recycling contract ends this year with Waste Connections, and the need to go out for bid and what the bid package should look like. So based on the discussions we had at May, staff finalized the bid package, including 4 options, and we had a bid opening on June 21st, and we have 60 days to consider those bids. We had one bidder, which was the current service provider, Waste Connections, although there were 3 other contractors who expressed some interest in the bid package, but elected for one reason or another not to submit a bid. The 4 options are to continue with the pay-as-you-throw approach that we currently have used for some time. Option 2 is to go from pay-as-you-throw to a lump sum fee per every household. The third option is, and that lump sum fee is for entitles everyone to put up to the equivalent of 3 40-pound bags or containers per week. The third option is to have a flat fee with 1 container or bag per week. And if a home generates more than 40 pounds of solid waste in a week, they would need to procure a pay-as-you-throw tag and attach that to subsequent containers. And the final one is to have similar to option 2, lump sum lump sum fee for up to 3 bags or 3 containers per week, and an option for low volume producers to continue with the pay-as-you-throw approach. In that case, they would need to procure at least 5 bags per quarter. 5 tags per quarter. So those were the 4 options, and the pricing came in. If you want to go, Stephanie, to table 4, if you can do that, which is the next page. But you can see what the pricing was there, and if you look at that and consider the current average number of bags used per quarter, which, if you take the total number of bags or tags that we sell divided by the number of housing units based on county tax assessment records, it comes out to 11.9 per quarter. And if you compare that pricing to 11.9 bags per quarter, under the pay-as-you-throw option, when you compare that to option 1 to option 2, that's equivalent to 13 bags per quarter. If you would compare options 3 to 2, it's 10.8 bags per quarter, so it's a little bit less than what the current average is. And the final option, it just doesn't make it's the most expensive one in both cases for pay-as-you-throw or lump sum. So I think it would be fair to say that we could eliminate that one from consideration. Okay, when you compare the borough's program to others in the area, and what the pricing has been over the last 4 years, what you'll see is that as we go further in time, the cost per customer goes up. So folks that have bid for solid waste and recycling services this year are paying significantly more than folks such as North Middleton Township that bid out in 2018-2019 timeframe. Comparing the borough's pricing to other municipalities that bid it out this year, our price is actually a little bit less for options 1, 2, or 3. I have in the memorandum some information regarding inflation rate, consumer price index, and what's included in the consumer price index. This is not a surprise to anyone. The price of fuel has been the most expensive and the one that has gone up the most. And when you look at solid waste and recycling services, it relies on labor, and it relies on diesel fuel and equipment cost. Okay, so that being said, Council has 60 days to consider this. I believe you could take action as early as next week's Council meeting, but you would need to do that either this month, or at the workshop next month, or the August Council meeting. That was very brief, but I thought there would be some questions, so I'll just leave it open for questions or discussion.
Yeah, I think we'll discuss this a bit. I want to read. Councilor Stubbe had some comments, and he's unable to make it tonight. That I'll read for us this evening. Before I get to that, Mark, just out of curiosity, well, not curiosity, because I think it would be interesting or important to know, depending on which option we elect. Do we have we have data on the tonnage that is hauled each year?
Correct. On a monthly basis, our service providers are required to tell us the total tons of solid waste and the total tons of recycling that are taken to the recovery facility. Now, that tons of recycling includes contamination, and that's the extent of the information that they provide to us. We can't drill down any further into the tons of glass or the tons of paper or plastic. It's just total recycling and total solid waste.
Right. So that tells me then too that going forward we choose something that's even slightly different than what we're doing now. We'll be able to sort of track what impact that may be having. Although you had stats on the number of the average number of bags used, and I noticed it went up during the pandemic. I'm not sure what the impact might be in the coming years, but I think it would be important for us to analyze as we go forward under the new contract what kind of impact the decision may be having on the tonnage of trash disposed.
One other comment, and it's not listed in the memo, but as you spoke, it came to my mind. We've been doing pay-as-you-throw for some time, and there's the contractors have a history of that. We also provided them with the tons of recycling, the tons of solid waste. What the contractor does not know is if you go from one option to the other, what the amount would be. So, I think that's likely one of the reasons why the fourth option was so expensive, because that's the one that has the most uncertainty to the contractor as far as who's going to participate lump sum, who's going to participate with pay-as-you-throw. So as you reduce the level of uncertainty, then the price is reflective of that.
Right. Well, one other thing before I have council chime in, then at the end I'll circle back with Councilor Stubbe's comments and my own. I don't want to leave it hanging out there because sometimes people may hear, we only got one bid, others didn't bid, may sound odd. Your understanding is that was primarily for most of the non-bidders was just the distance of their facilities from the borough.
It was either the distance from their facilities or the service provider that surrounds the borough provides service to the surrounding municipalities. Wanted a arrangement that they could rely on automated collection. So a cart with an arm and one worker, essentially. And because of the way that we are with downtown parking and our land use, that just isn't a practical solution for us right now.
Yeah, I imagine they'd love autonomous garbage trucks if they could get them too. So, any comments or questions from council? I'll start down. I hardly ever start to my right, so I'll start to my right.
No, I mean, as I'm looking at it, I've said before that I've had a few people to tell me that they like the pay as you throw. Personally, I like it too, but then when I'm looking at this, then now I'm feeling a little differently, I think. So I don't know. That's basically just my comment right now.
Just a couple things I wanted to bring up in my mind. So, first of all, as always, Mark, thanks for the detailed information. It really helps us think through the problem. You're always very good with that. I will say that the 11.9 number that we use as an average is helpful, but not that helpful of a number to me, because the median to me is more relevant than the average. Obviously, we had no way of measuring the median, right? Because you'd have to know. So you could see where like heavy users could be swaying the average higher. And in effect, you could have a very low number of low usage that would get hidden in that number. So I'm a little bit wary of saying that, comparing 11.9 to what a flat fee would be is a little fuzzy in my mind. My eyeball test in my neighborhood tells me we're lower than 11.9 average, but then that's just from my feet can tell me in the neighborhood. And I realize that's the only information we had. So the only other question I had was in terms of monitoring costs and running the program with the utility, if we went with putting it on a utility bill, I'm just assuming there would be some additional costs to us in monitoring and sort of enforcing that method that may not be captured here. What is our sense for what running it as a flat fee would be from an operations point of view?
Well, most of the cost, I think, would be the initial implementation. And we recently went through the implementation for the stormwater fee. So I suspect it would be something similar to that. We realize that you have multiple households and maybe living in a particular home. And as we roll out our rental inspection ordinance and that sort of thing, we'll get a better idea of how to refine some of these. But at least initially, we think we can manage it, putting it on that utility bill.
I would add that if we all of the options that are presented move from the pay-as-you-throw bag to the pay-as-you-throw tag, TNG, and we spend a considerable amount of time and effort distributing bags and dealing with customers returning bags and other issues related to bags. So going from where we are now to not having bags would, I think, more than make up for the additional initial effort with putting another item on a utility bill.
Okay, we're getting out of the bag business in any of these options, which is grand. I will just, I guess, I know part of the rationale for maybe establishing a flat fee in the borough's mind is it would disincentivize somebody who didn't want to procure a bag or whatever. I'm not convinced this would change that all that much. Somebody who doesn't want to pay for trash, somebody who doesn't want to, there's nothing going to preclude them from using the improper disposal method that we struggle with. So that's, at least in my thinking, that's probably not going to be a deterrent for whether you go with a flat fee or a pay-as-you-throw. The last question I had, I couldn't quite wrap my head around the differences, and you could probably only speculate between the second and third option. It does seem a little, I was a little bit surprised at the lower flat fee relative to the not having a high volume user. It's going from 90 to 75 with a 695 high volume. That I didn't get a business degree, but that doesn't. Can you even speculate why that would be a lower number under that plan?
If the service provider needs, so the service provider's cost to a large extent is fuel and labor, and if the provider has to go and collect more trash. Make multiple um, routes or multiple steps back and forth from the contain or from the dump the garbage truck to the curb, then that's additional time. So I think that in their minds, I'm again speculating, but in their minds, I'm thinking that their experience is that by having essentially unlimited, there's a lot more that needs to be collected on a weekly basis. I know that just the community I live in is unlimited, and there's lots of containers at the curb on a weekly basis.
Yeah, whether there's one bag on the street or 12, they're still going down that street.
But it's going back and forth. So my neighbor puts out 6 bags of grass cuttings every time he cuts the grass. So there's 6 big bags there that the guy has to pick up. And
I think if you look at those numbers, it looks like they're making an assumption there's about 3 bags on average per dwelling unit. And if they're looking at it from that vantage point, you add another 692 twice onto the 70, 75, and you're getting close to the 90, right? So that's just guess. I mean, you don't know unless you talk to them, I suppose. And sometimes bidders bid the way they do because they want a certain option, don't want others, but they have to bid on all of them. So, and that's probably part of why we see 3A4. I'm sorry, the way it is. But we'll move on, Deputy Mayor.
I think I just have one question. I don't think it was in here, and I kind of think I asked it last time, but I don't remember the answer. And that goes back to the utility portion of it. Of if someone doesn't pay their garbage bill, then how do we follow up with that?
Yes. So similar to how we currently handle stormwater as on the utility bill, what would happen is we would determine the priority level. Okay, so a resident that comes in, essentially, we would likely credit their payment first to trash, next to stormwater, followed by sewer, and then water.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Okay, thank you.
Just follow up that if you don't mind. So, do you give a list of addresses to the company not to pick up the trash based on that?
No, sir. What would happen is if there's any outstanding arrearage, the water actually would get the utility bill, the water utility gets terminated for any outstanding balance. Trash would continue to get picked up. Correct, Richard?
That's correct, and that's similar to the stormwater because our only means of collecting on that is to first have that paid, which would leave any shortage against the water, and then that would then be terminated and then liened.
And with that, with that, if there is someone that comes and says they're struggling, we do have resources, so it's not just like a blind,
Correct. We continue our best to do outreach to individuals, try to be, again, part of the solution, not just part of the problem, providing them different resources, flexible payment plans, etc.
Councilor Mellon.
I guess just going back to the conversations you had with the 3 companies that did not bid, they didn't give you an indication that if only the bids were written differently, they might. So if we were to say reject this bid and rebid it, they wouldn't necessarily be likely to rebid because it was more distance.
For 2 of the 3, it was distance. The other one, they wanted automation.
Okay. Well, I'd love to see what the bids look like for our friends in North Middleton Township this time, because I did notice on your list that they're only currently paying $40 a quarter, and it's going to go up for them too. I saw on your list at the end that had what other municipalities are paying, that Newville had a deal where they were had the option to annually adjust for fuel costs. That would have been a nice option, but I guess it's too late to add that now. So
That, I suppose that could be a good and a bad thing. Yeah. Hopefully they go back down at some point, but they were paying the cost of fossil fuels. But I'll read Councilor Stubbe's comments, although he may watch this meeting, and although I'm not sure his mind would change, but I'll read them off here. What he wrote is, after reviewing the memorandum that staff compiled and the bid options, I'm in favor of going with bid item 3A3, flat fee per dwelling unit with tagged bags for high volume users. In our prior discussion, I shared my discontent with the current program. From my perspective, requiring residents to purchase single-use plastic trash bags for their solid waste conflicts with the borough's prior conversations on limiting single-use plastics. In addition, while I acknowledge the theoretical value of a pay-as-you-throw program in limiting waste produced, I do not believe continuing such a program is fiscally prudent for the borough. The borough's solid waste fund is the weakest borough fund, and this appears to be because of our current solid waste program. Implementing a flat fee system will be more economically viable in the long run. Of the bids the borough received, bid item 3A3 offers the lowest flat fee rate for residents. In addition, it incentivizes residents to limit the amount of waste they produce, providing an increased cost for residents who produce more than 40 pounds of waste per week. Ultimately, bid item 3A3 appears to be the best compromise between those who favor the borough's current solid waste program and those who prefer the program change. I recognize that there are residents who will favor continuing the current pay-as-you-throw system and those who would rather the borough implement a flat fee system with unlimited waste disposal. Neither of those seems viable in the long run. I am sure there will be residents who find fault in bid item 3A3, and I recognize that this option is not perfect. Of the options we have available, though, I feel it is our best path forward. And I know we're going to have another week to ruminate on this at the very least. And that's something we'll have to talk about, whether we're moving forward next week. Although given that we're not going to rebid, I don't know why we wait any longer than next week to move forward. But I think Councilor Stubbe's comments, I largely agree with them. And, you know, I do say, Councilor Hicks and I think we all agree that we want people to reduce their waste as much as possible. And the current system theoretically should do that well, as long as you don't have free riders. But we have a significant indication that there's a large amount of free riders, people who aren't using the current system, who may be hoarding trash, causing codes issues, that are then we have the cost of following up on of the follow-up by our codes department. So in the end, at this point, I imagine I'm going to be voting to support 3A3. In part because I'm not sure that one diminishes the incentive to reduce waste by enough to offset the issues that we have with the current program. And I'm not convinced also that if someone doesn't want to pay, it won't change their behavior, because now they have at least one bag, 1 unit a week that they can put out, and they're going to pay that regardless. It's coming off their bill, and they're going to be paying for that service. So why not use it at least for that 40 pounds a week if they have at least that amount of trash per week? So is council, after, is there any follow-up questions or comments at this point? Okay. Any disagreement with just moving ahead with this next week? No. Go ahead. we'll have to award the bid next week, or by the August meeting.
Do we have to select an option tonight?
No, we'll have to select one by next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we once we commit to an option, that subsequent years will be locked into that option as well. We would not have the ability to do an audible after a year under these rates. Is that correct assumption?
We'll have a 3-year commitment. Right.
Okay.
And then at the end of that, we can rebid. We can go along with, as we have in here, there are 2 option years, so we could take it out 5 years. Although looking at those prices, it eventually ramps up to a little over $98 per dwelling per quarter for the if we're looking at 3A3 as an example, and $10.92 per extra tagged bag. So imagine what we're going to be doing over the next 3 years is staff's going to be looking at, I'll say, other options. I think we've talked about in meetings before, possibly bring the hauling service in-house, and then we can perhaps have more flexibility in how we tailor the system to our borough. But
That's correct,
Borough
Mayor.
manager looks-
Actually, staff has been charged to bring back a report next year for council's review and consideration.
Okay. So next week, nobody needs to commit to the option at this point, but I think the agenda next week will need to list out the options that we have, and then Council Perry, this is your committee, so you'll have to select the option that you choose after maybe we have some additional discussion. You kind of get a sense of where council is, but in the end, it's your motion. You can make the motion as you want. We'll have a vote. If that one doesn't work, we'll move on to the next one.
Well, can you make sure that you have protective custody for me after this? Because, in all honesty, I mean, I think that regardless to what option we decide on, there are going to be some angry people, some that are, because there's going to be some that won't understand it, which I get. For the ones who are, throwing their trash away the way they're supposed to every week, they're not going to understand it. Like I told you, I've already had about 3 or 4 people stop me in the middle of the street in an event to tell me that, they like the pay as you throw. But as I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the price increase, it's price increase for all of them every year so far. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'll be ready, I think.
Yeah, I would guarantee that there's probably just about everybody would be unhappy with the price increase. So there's going to be at least that. But when you look at the other municipalities and their percent change, I mean, we saw percentage change from one contract to the next as high as 127.5%. So all municipalities are feeling that. So we just need to make sure people understand that the best we can, and we need the trash to be picked up. Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll get that. We'll have that ready for next week, and we can discuss it further next week if we wish. The rest of your committee agenda can move forward.
Well, I think I'm supposed to push this back to Mark also. I think all of them except for the action item I'm pushing to Mark.
Correct. All right. The borough has 5 water storage tanks, the oldest and the smallest of which is the Ridge Street tank, which is located south of us at the intersection of South Pitt and Ridge Street. That tank was constructed in 1932, so it's 90 years old. We have a birthday party for it. And included in the budget for this year was $300,000 to paint the tank, to paint the interior and exterior of the tank. Painting of steel tanks is it's a standard practice that is done on a on a regular basis to keep a tank from corroding. We had an inspection of the tank done before we prepared the painting specifications, and the inspector indicated that it could likely the current painting coating system has a life of about another 3 years or so. So we don't need to paint it this year. However, due to the age of the tank being 90 years old, a typical tank lasts between 60 and 80, and also because of the federal potential for federal funding for construction of a new tank, and to deal with issues that we have in the southern portion of the borough with low water pressures. Staff thought it would be prudent to plan for the eventual replacement of the Ridge Street tank. In order to plan for that, we would need to undertake an engineering evaluation to determine the proper elevation of the tank and the size of the tank in a suitable location for that. The existing tank would need to remain in service until a new tank is placed in service. So for the July council meeting, there'll be a PBS for approval for an engineering contract in the amount of, I think, $29,800 to have the engineer do the siting study. We would then use that information to potentially apply for federal funding for a new tank.
Any questions or comments from council? None? Okay, thank you, Mark. You want to just keep rolling?
Okay. Also included in this year's capital improvement plan is continuation of the borough's program to replace a portion of its water distribution system. Our goal is to replace between 1 to 2 miles of pipeline per year. We had originally had a design for replacing some of the oldest pipe that we have in the borough, where we've encountered the most water main breaks. And the map shown on your screen identifies the streets in the borough where those mains are located. It's approximately 1.9 miles of pipeline. All the pipeline constructed prior to 1930 when the borough took over the system. We originally had planned on doing this during previous years, but because of COVID, we elected not to do it because of the temporary loss of water service that would need to happen as construction went on. So we went out to bid earlier this month or last month, and we had several bidders. The low being just under $5 million, pricing being much higher than we had originally anticipated. So on the agenda for the next council meeting are 2 items associated with the water main replacement project. One is consideration to award the contract to the low bidder, and the second is to authorize the engineer who did the design to provide construction phase engineering services for the project. The borough intends to use its internal staff to do the on-site inspections, but we would need the engineering assistance for administration of the construction, review of shop drawings, interpretation of design concepts, change orders, other issues that may come up during construction.
Any questions or comments? None? Okay.
Mayor, I would just add that staff also understands that there's certain areas by that map, as you can see, that when the projects get underway, it's going to be a significant impact to parking, residential parking. We'll, as in previous years, what we'll do a robust outreach effort to the residents and businesses and provide options for on-street metered parking with hangars or potentially some in the Plumford Street parking garage, etc. While certain sections are being significantly impacted. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
I would also add that of that 5 million approximately, a little over $1 million is for repaving the streets once the main is installed. So the contract includes excavation and installation of a new main and water service lines from the main to the curb stop, installation of a new curb stop. So the road is going to be pulverized as a result of that activities. It's a unit price contract. Staff will be looking closely at options associated with that, potentially removing final road restoration from this and having a separate contract with a paver to do that work. That may be able to bring down the price a little when we're finally able to do this paving next year. This is a 15-month construction period. So this goes from this year through fall and winter to next spring and summer. So it's gonna be a disruptive project.
Okay. Thank you for the warning. Council Perry, you have one more item left on your agenda. You get to actually make a motion.
Borough Council may authorize the mayor to sign the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Sewage Facilities Planning Module Exemption Form for a connection to the borough's sanitary sewer system from the proposed Chesterfield Phase 3A residential land development.
There is a motion to authorize me to sign the sewage facilities planning module exemption for Chesterfield Phase 3A. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Any discussion? Sorry, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Thank you, Councilor Perry. Public Safety Committee, I have one item under my agenda. I move that Council ratify the 2022 Summer Fair 5K Walk Run held on neighborhood streets around Dickinson College campus on July 2nd, 2022 from 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. The applicant was responsible and shall be responsible for reimbursing the borough 100% of the variable costs and 10% of the fixed costs associated with this event. So motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Hicks. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Employee Relations, Citizen Participation Committee. Deputy Mayor.
I just have one item. I make the motion that Borough Council appoint Rhonda Tamblin Watts to a partial term on the Carlisle Borough Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This term will become effective immediately and shall expire December 31st, 2022.
Motion by Deputy Mayor to appoint Rhonda Tamblin Watts to the TRC. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. That concludes your. That's it.
That concludes
You have
my report.
nothing more. Okay. Councilor Mellon, Parks and Recreation.
Okay, so the bids came in for the Fairground Avenue Linear Park. We received 3 bids, but unfortunately none of the bidders indicated references which were required for the subcontractors. So I move that council reject all bids received and authorize rebidding of the Fairground Avenue Linear Park project.
Councilor Mellon moves to reject all bids received for the Fairground Avenue Linear Park project. I will second that motion. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. There is no new business. There's no public comment to be had here in Borough Hall. Steph, there's no public comment anywhere. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.